Hey there, guys. Welcome to Camp on the Hill. It's been a little while since we've had an episode. I've been doing a lot of live in-person teachings lately and haven't had as much time to devote to these videos or to the podcast, but we've got some new podcast episodes coming soon over on Spotify. And tonight, I wanted to do this video to talk to you guys about what's happening with these midterm elections. Everyone was expecting a red wave, and what we're being told right now by the mainstream media and what it's looking like as the election results come in is that we didn't have a red wave. But did we or did we not? And what do these results actually show us about the state of not only the Republican Party, but our nation right now? So what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be diving tonight into a little bit of election analysis, post-election analysis, but then also talking about the road ahead. What does the road ahead for us now look like that the 2022 midterm elections are basically in the book? There's still some states coming in, but they're basically in the book. So I want to start us off tonight with this question. Did the red wave fail? We've been talking, some people, for 2 years now, since the corrupt 2020 presidential election. People have been talking for 2 years that we are going to see a red wave. And when the results came in on the night of November 8th, it didn't really look like we had a red wave. And the mainstream media right now is reporting like crazy that it's more of a red trickle than a red wave. But what was it? Did we have a failed attempt at a red wave? Is the Republican Party really not as strong as we thought it is? What's going on? Well, you see, here's the interesting thing. When you actually look at a breakdown, I encourage you guys, go online, go on Google, go on DuckDuckGo, whatever your search engine is, and search for House results or Senate results. And what you're going to do is you're going to see a map of the United States of America. And you're going to see that map red or blue, right, according to the electoral results. The majority of the country is red. Where you see blue areas, and very few areas, are on the coasts, obviously, and then in a few speckled places throughout the country, and those are very heavily populated areas. And this is one thing that the Democrats have been working really, really well on for years now, is they don't necessarily bother with the rural areas. They don't bother with those areas because they know that traditional Christian and traditional American patriotic and political values are so deep rooted in rural areas that they're not even going to make a dent. They're going to get kicked out. So what the Democrats have done over the past number of years is they've focused heavily, sending billions, I'm talking hundreds of billions of dollars and a lot of man hours in urban areas. And that's why when you go online, do the search, and you see the electoral map, you're going to see, wait a minute, it looks like the majority of the country is red. It looks like a red wave. The problem is the few Democratic areas, the few Democratic strongholds, if you will, in our country right now are all extremely heavily populated areas. So what we saw on election night was this. And again, like, there still are some results coming in from a few states that are going to determine things like the Senate for sure. But what we saw on election night was this, and this is why I don't think it was a failed red wave as the media is portraying. What we saw was this. In the areas where Republicans were supposed to win and where they were being threatened, like in Ohio, right? We were being threatened by Democrat candidates like Nan Whaley running for governor, like Tim Ryan running for, the incumbent running for Senate. The Republicans won. In areas where Republicans were supposed to win, even if they were being threatened in some way by Democrats, we won. And that is huge, because if we didn't have that and we didn't maintain those key areas, or like in Ohio, take over that key area, like the Senate seat that Tim Ryan held, if we didn't do that, we'd be sunk right now. All right, just flat out, it would be game over. The ship would be going over the edge right now. But what we saw on election night was where Republicans were supposed to win, and even where there was some doubt, we won. Where Democrats were supposed to win, those Democrat strongholds, they won. It wasn't really a big surprise, and we can't necessarily say that it was a red trickle, because Republicans won. Again, if you go online and you search it and you see the electoral map of the country, Republicans took, we had massive parts of America right now. We have massive seats and massive positions of influence in key states. But then, guys, you see some oddities. Then you see some of these oddities, places like Arizona, places like Pennsylvania, places like Georgia, places like Nevada, Colorado. These places, similar, interestingly enough, these are the same places where we saw irregularities and the election going on for days and even weeks in 2020 during the presidential election, which should show us something. It should show us that we should start paying attention to the election laws and procedures that are going on in these key states. If we are now having these same problems over and over again, if every stinking election, the entire country can get all of the results in on election night as it's supposed to, because this is an election day, yet the election keeps getting held on to for days and weeks because of these key states that are having some issues. That should show us something. That should show us that in these areas, places like Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, Colorado, there's something wrong and it needs to be dealt with at a local level. And we need to get that figured out. But we're seeing these oddities again. For example, Arizona, we still don't know if Kari, as last I checked, we still don't know if Kari Lake won yet. Georgia, having issues there again, where now that's going to a runoff between Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. Pennsylvania, I mean, the results came in the next day, but we're really supposed to believe that Fetterman, a guy that has maybe as much cognitive ability as Joe Biden, might even be worse off than Joe Biden. We're supposed to be that guy beat Dr. Oz. And I get it, Dr. Oz is a TV personality, but we're supposed to be stupid enough to believe that Pennsylvanians that, are normal, right-thinking people actually voted for a guy that had a stroke recently and does not have full cognitive capability. So we're seeing some things there. We're seeing the, stuff down in Georgia. We're seeing Kari Lake in Arizona. We're also seeing some issues in Colorado. And we're also seeing now what they're saying the Senate race could come down to in Nevada. This is going to be really key to look at. The whole Senate race right now, whether Republicans or Democrats are going to control the Senate, could come down to Nevada. And it's very interesting, and I'm going to get into it in just a second. But the reason specifically in some of these places like Arizona, like Georgia, like Pennsylvania, like Colorado, like Nevada, specifically Nevada, they have voter laws that get the ridiculousness of this. As long as something, as a ballot was postmarked by the 8th, they could send them in Nevada all the way up to today. So the polls are still receiving ballots today. That's right, today, Saturday, when the election was Tuesday. And in Nevada, if they arrive by today and they're at least postmarked on November 8th, they still count. And that's why we're seeing some of these, just absolute ridiculous things happen, like the elections running on for days and weeks at a time, is because they can't count the ballots. And it makes an insane amount of room for irregularity, corruption, and fraud. And so this is what we're seeing right now. People saying it wasn't a red wave, it was more of a red trickle, but where Republicans were supposed to win, we won. Where Democrats were obviously going to win, they won. But then we see these areas of what appears to be corruption and fraud again because of terrible and awful voting regulations and voting laws in these places where it's dragging on again, just like it did in 2020. So now on to the next part. The mainstream media is calling this election a failure for Republicans. And there are two reasons why they are doing this right now. There are two reasons why the mainstream media is hammering this home right now, that this was a failed election for Republicans. And you need to know what these two reasons are, because this is going to affect how you vote heavily heading into 2024 and before that. The mainstream media's two purposes are this. They are trying to, one, cast doubt on Donald Trump. They're saying, look, Trump's been campaigning now for the past 2 years. He's been spending, raising millions and millions and millions of dollars and endorsing these candidates. And look, there was no red wave. It was a red trickle. Well, newsflash, if you actually look at the numbers, the Trump endorsed candidates won by a landslide. Almost every single candidate that he endorsed, there were a few that he lost out on, but almost every candidate that he endorsed won all over the country. And this isn't just a big push for Donald Trump, but what the mainstream media is trying to do right now is they're trying to cast doubt on whether or not Donald Trump still is the face of the Republican Party. Why? Because they are absolutely terrified of the momentum that he has going into 2024. For example, on Monday night, the night before the election, President Trump was in Dayton. I and a buddy went up there just to check this out. Never been to a Trump rally before. Never been to a presidential rally. I saw Ben Carson when he was running for president in 2016. But I've never been to a presidential rally. And I'm telling you this, I have never seen such a crowd in numbers and the enthusiasm that showed up. There had to be 30,000 people there that showed up to see President Donald Trump, mainly to endorse now Senator of Ohio, J.D. Vance. But the mainstream media has noticed that over the past 2 years that he's been drawing crowds like this on a nightly basis. And why he's been doing this is, yes, to build momentum for 2024, but also to get the right people in place now in the 2022 midterms so that in 2024 we can make an even bigger impact in taking our nation back. And the mainstream media is terrified of this. But there's another reason why the mainstream media is trying to cast a shadow of doubt on Donald Trump and whether or not he still is the face of the Republican Party. It's because right now, the mainstream media, which is run and controlled by the Socialist, Communist, Democrat Party in America, they are absolutely terrified of what Republicans just did in the midterm election. That's why they're saying it wasn't a red wave, even though we took key spots all over the country, and it's looking like we're going to have control of the House, and there's a possibility still that we could have control of the Senate. This would be massive heading into 2024. They are terrified that Republicans are going to have any control or possibly all control. And so what they're trying to do right now is they're trying to split the Republican Party heading into 2024. They're trying to split the Republican Party. And how they're doing this is this. They're singling out Donald Trump and trying to make it seem like it's all about him. And there is a part of his personality that's like that, all right? Again, like I've said on here before, if you're looking for Donald Trump to be the savior of America, you're looking to the wrong place. There's only one savior, and it's not Donald Trump. It's not Ron DeSantis. It's not Joe Biden. It's not your pastor. It's Jesus Christ. He is the one and only savior of not only America, but humanity. And so we can't look to a political candidate to do that. The mainstream media, though, is obsessed with some of the candidates that the Republicans are putting forth right now, and they see two huge threats heading into 2024. And those two huge threats, on top of the Republicans taking back the House and possibly the Senate, are Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis of Florida. So what they're trying to do right now is they're trying to use their media influence to divide Republicans into the Trump camp and into the DeSantis camp. They're trying to create a divide because they understand something. A house against itself, divided against itself, cannot stand. Abraham Lincoln said that, and he got that from the Bible, got it from the Gospels. Jesus quoted that. A house divided against itself cannot stand. They understand this concept that one way that you can dismantle something is you divide and then you conquer. And what the Democrats are trying to do right now, because we just shook their world in these 2022 midterm elections, they're terrified of what this is going to bring about, not having control of the House, possibly the Senate. They're trying to divide the Republican Party. We cannot allow this to happen. So I'm asking you right now, you're being told early on, do not buy the media hype. Most likely, this coming Tuesday, Donald Trump is going to announce his presidency, his candidacy for the presidency from his home in Mar-a-Lago, Florida. That is most likely the big announcement he's going to make this Tuesday. Right away, the media is going to go into this narrative that Trump is not the face of the Republican Party. He needs to step down. There are some Republican names beginning to back this narrative right now that Trump needs to step down. Whether he does or whether he does not is not to be decided right now. And it's ultimately not to be decided by us. Our job right now is to not allow our allegiances to be divided. We need to focus on one thing and one thing alone right now. And that is effecting change in your local community now that we have Republican candidates in places of power. So like here in Ohio, we've got Mike DeWine, like him or hate him. I hated a lot of stuff that he did, especially during COVID, but he's also done a lot of good things like signing the heartbeat bill, which bans abortion after 6 weeks in the state of Ohio, and also making Ohio a constitutional carry state, protecting our Second Amendment right. Those are two massive things he did, along with a lot of huge manufacturing jobs that are coming to the state of Ohio this year. So we've got that in our governorship, but we also have J.D. Vance in the Senate now. We have an opportunity to do a lot over the next 2 years. We have an opportunity now with these Republican candidates on our side to affect a lot of change at a local level in our communities and in our state to make sure that our communities and that Ohio remains not just a red state politically, but also a state that stands for traditional American and Judeo-Christian values, that those are preserved in our communities and in our state. That's what we focus on right now. Not do we back Trump, not do we back DeSantis, not do we back this candidate or that candidate. Stay united in the goal. And the goal is this: we must maintain an American way of life in the state of Ohio. Or if you're watching this in another state, you must fight to maintain an American way of life in your state. Because the Democrats have one goal. And again, I'm not saying all Democrats, but we're past the point of this argument. The leadership of the Democrat Party is corrupt. They are evil. They are despicable. They are oftentimes disgusting in their views. And they stand behind concepts and principles that have zero intellect and absolutely zero moral foundation, which is why when a lot of these Democrat candidates got on a stage to debate, many of them refused to even get on a stage to debate because they recognized that when they got on stage, they were not going to be able to defend these ridiculous ideas. But the few that did get on the stage, the debate stage, and debated their Republican counterparts, they absolutely fell apart because they recognized that the concepts, the principles that they were running on for the Democrat Party today are absolutely stupid. They're baseless. They're ridiculous. They lack intellect. They lack any type of moral fiber. And because of that, you cannot defend them. And so that is our goal. It's to make sure that those people and their evil, ridiculous agendas stay out of power, and that we maintain a Judeo-Christian and American way of life where we live. So now, let's get to some of these oddities. Places like Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Colorado. Why are we seeing that? Well, remember, these are some of the same states where we saw these issues 2 years ago in 2020. And the reason why is a couple reasons. One, these are states, in a lot of cases, with awful voting laws and absolutely terrible electoral systems that make way for a lot of corruption. For example, in Nevada, I mentioned it a second ago, but in Nevada, under their current voting laws, their current election laws, even though the election was Tuesday, they are still receiving ballots today, Saturday, as long as they were postmarked by November 8th. That not only drags the election on for weeks at a time, but it also makes so much room for ballot dumping. It does. I mean, just let's put it out there. It makes so much room for ballot dumping. And if you saw the documentary 2000 Mules, you saw exactly how this was done by the Democrat Party in the election of 2020. And they're doing it all over again. Why? Because it worked once and nothing was done about it. You know why nothing was done about it? Was it because there wasn't actually any evidence? No, there was a ton of evidence. There was actually a lot of evidence brought out in official court hearings, but there wasn't a single court that had the balls enough anywhere to actually make a judgment on it, because they recognized how corrupt the Democrat mafia is in the United States of America. So they got away with it in 2020. They're doing it again. Why not? Right, if you're part of the mob, why not? That's why mobsters were never afraid, because they had the judges, they had the police chiefs, they had the fire chief, they had all these people paid off, they had the politicians paid off, they had them all bought off. That's what's happening in America. You have judges, you have courts that are absolutely terrified to get in and make a right decision on something because they're afraid of getting killed because of the Democrat mafia. And that's exactly what they are, is they're a mob. Like the Biden family, the Clinton family, the Obama family. These are crime syndicates. They are crime syndicates. They are not simply political families. They are crime families. No different than the mob. And so what we saw also in Arizona, listen to this, it was just right there. Carrie Lake, who's running in Arizona, said that 24 hours, ready for this, 24 hours after the polls closed in Arizona, they had only counted 60,000 votes. Why? Because they have a flawed system. If you look at Florida, for example, right? It's 10 o'clock at night on election night. All Florida's results are in. Everybody knows who won. Everybody knows who lost. Everyone goes to bed. Some are happy, some are sad, but they go to bed. They get up for the next day to go to work. But you have a place like Arizona where 24 hours after the polls closed, you only got 60,000 votes counted. And that's why it's dragging on for days and days. We already talked about Pennsylvania and the fact that we're supposed to believe that Fetterman beat Dr. Oz. It's ridiculous, but we're moving on. It's the same states as 2020, guys, and this should tell us something. This should show us a key insight into the corrupt Democrat Party strategy. When you look at the states that have fraud, when you look at the states that are dragging our elections on for days and weeks, when the rest of the country is able to get their results in the night of, like it's supposed to be. And for me, like I remember my entire life growing up, 35 years old, haven't been around for a long time, but my entire life, we knew who had won on election night. Why is it now that it's dragging on for days and weeks at a time, and it's only in key states? Because that shows us a key insight into the Democrat strategy. They care about these key states. And if they can keep corrupt voting laws in place and election laws in place in these places, they're just going to keep doing this election after election. Every 2 years, they're going to keep doing it. So as we stand right now, let's give a quick update. All right, the last I checked, Republicans are looking to win the House. Republicans are predicted to win the House. The Senate is neck and neck. Okay, the Republicans still can win the Senate, but it's looking like, what they're saying is it's looking like it's going to come down to Nevada. And the reason we're still dragging on in Nevada is because they're still accepting ballots today. Absolutely ridiculous. Whew. So, all that aside, what is our job? And what does the road ahead look like? Well, the road ahead looks like this. One, do not concern ourselves yet with 2024. Do not concern ourselves yet with 2024. What you're going to see this coming Tuesday, most likely, is former President Donald Trump make his candidacy announced for president for 2024. And immediately you're going to see the media go into an absolute whirlwind trying to pit DeSantis against Trump and trying to say DeSantis is the future, Trump needs to step down, and that might be. But what they're doing, remember, you have to read between the lines of what the media is trying to do. Do not accept everything you see on online or what the media says. Never just accept it. Read between the lines. What are they trying to get me to believe? What are they trying to convince me to accept? Well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to divide us. So one, keep 2024 in the distant future, where it belongs. Secondly, our job is this. And when I say our job, I'm not talking about the people that were elected into office this past week. I'm talking about your job as a citizen and my job as a citizen. Our job is to do what it always has been and what it always will be, to change culture. That's what you have the opportunity to do. You don't have an opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. and vote on behalf of the people. That's why we elect representatives. What you and I have the opportunity to do is something that our politicians do not have the ability to do. We have the opportunity every day in our local communities, at your work site, at your kids' school, starting at home with your family, in your local politics, in your local township government, in your church. What you have the opportunity to do every day is to affect change, to change culture for the kingdom of God and for the ways that made America great. That's what we have the ability to do every day. So there's three concepts that were mentioned: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Three things stated in the Declaration of Independence: that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Of these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, the right to life; liberty, freedom; and the right to pursue what makes you happy. And it's those three simple but heavy principles that have not only sustained us as a nation for the past 246 years, but have made us the greatest nation in the world in that same period of time. A place where people are dying, literally, to come to so that they can begin a life, the American dream. And it's those principles that are under attack, not just at a national level, but it's those three principles that are under attack in our local communities by the Democrat Party. They're against life. I mean, guys, just to get real with you for a second, there were some places around our country in these past midterm elections that made decisions to vote for things like the ability to kill a baby that is born alive after a failed abortion. There are places around our country that are voting for things like birthday abortions, the ability to abort the baby on the day that it's due in the hospital, and if it's a failed abortion and the baby's born alive, to allow it to die, to refuse life-giving treatment. There are places around our country that are voting for things like that. And these are being pushed by Democrat candidates. So don't let them convince you that they stand for you. They don't stand for you. They don't stand for me. They stand for two things, and that's money and that's power. That's all they care about. They want to take power away from you and from me because they recognize, as long as you and I understand that fundamentally the power of government always has been and always will be in the hands of the people, as long as we forget that, they can seize power away from us. And they can push absolute ridiculous things like killing a child, allowing it to lie there dead, gasping for air and medical attention, and allow it to die. That is the modern day Democrat Party. They're disgusting. They're despicable. They're ungodly. They are evil. And they need to be taken out of positions of influence and power. And many of them need to be brought to judgment and be imprisoned. Liberty. The Democrat Party says, oh, we're all for liberty, right? We want you. You know, it's the Republicans. It's those old, rich, white people, which if you actually look at the statistics, there are a lot of blacks and Latinos that showed up for the Republican vote because they're seeing how Democrat policies in their communities are absolutely wrecking their communities and keeping them in systems of poverty generation after generation. For example, let's just talk about this real quick. Let's get elephant out of the room, right? If you look at Hamilton County, if you look at a map of Ohio and you see where the Democrats' strongholds are in Ohio, they're basically in three places: Hamilton County, Columbus, and little bits of northern Ohio. Let's take a Hamilton County for example. Hamilton County has been a Democrat stronghold for quite a while. And what you see in a lot of the areas in Hamilton County, a lot of the poverty-ridden areas, is you see poverty generation after generation after generation. You see gang violence generation after generation after generation. You see drug abuse and drug overdoses and deaths generation after generation. Why is that? These are the people that are saying, hey, vote us into power and we'll come in and clean it up. It's because Democrats take advantage of the black voters all the time. Democrats take advantage of the Latino voters all the time. Democrats take advantage of all minorities all the time, promising to come in and clean their communities up, but all they do is come in and create further crisis so they can continue to get elected over and over again on failed promises of coming in and cleaning things up. They have to keep crisis alive. Otherwise, people will see, well, there's no reason to have these Democrats around. Democrats get into these urban areas and they put policies in place to keep problems there. That's how they maintain their power. They don't want to fix things. They want power. They want control. They want money. That's what the modern day Democrat Party in America is. So they don't stand for liberty, and they say, oh yeah, we're all, you can choose whatever gender you want. You can, how dare someone tell you that you can't murder your baby, But here's the deal. Democrats aren't for liberty. You know why? Because they are all for you doing what you want until it begins to affect someone else. You have these pastors, and the Democrats will say, well, yeah, we're all for, gay marriage. People should be able to make the choice. People should be able to have free will. So if this person, a guy wants to marry another guy, they should be able to do that. But what if a pastor's free will says, well, I don't want to do that? Well, now we're going to sue that pastor. Democrats don't care about liberty, the true definition of liberty. They care about enforcing their will upon others. They care about submission. So they don't care about life, and they don't care about liberty. In fact, they want to steal life, which is crazy. They're killing their future voter base through abortion. And two, they don't care about liberty. They want to strip you of liberty so they maintain control. They want you to believe that the government's power is not in your hands like our founders believed and like Americans have fought and died for the last 246 years. They want you to believe that you are always dependent on them. And finally, the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness. The Agenda 2030 from the World Economic Forum, they've already said, hey, by 2030, you'll own nothing, but you'll be happy. That's their version of happiness. You'll own nothing. You'll have no rights. You'll depend on government for everything, but you'll be happy. So they don't care about the founding documents. They don't care about our founding principles. In fact, that's what the very term progressive means, is that our documents, the principles that this country was founded upon, they're old-fashioned. They don't work in today's complex society. We need to progress beyond those things. They believe that you and I exist to serve them, when our founders believed that they exist, that government exists to serve us, we the people. It is time for us, my friends, in our individual communities to begin to not only stand against, but openly and intelligently, might I add, mock these illegitimate concepts, policies, and ideas. Things like abortion, especially abortion on the day of birth. This needs to be openly mocked, ridiculed, and criticized. Things like the radical gender agenda of the Democratic Party needs to be mocked, it needs to be ridiculed, and it needs to be criticized. Things like the legalization of drugs like marijuana, which, by the way, in Union Township, if you live in Union Township, there are 4 new medical marijuana dispensaries coming into our community very soon. Why is that? We need to begin openly mocking these concepts and openly and intelligently, unified and powerfully fighting back against these things. And if you want to be a part of a group of people who are getting together on a regular basis to discuss these things from an intellectual place, and to look at what can we do in our local community to affect change, you want to join a class of mine that I teach twice a month called Engaging the Culture. We usually have it every other Wednesday at 7 p.m. And if you want more information on where and the when, I'll post that on the Camp on the Hill page. This Wednesday, it's this Wednesday. I'll post the info on it. But this Wednesday night at 7 p.m., we're having this Engaging the Culture class. If you are interested in what we've been talking about in this video and you want to be a part of a group of people who are going deeper beyond some of the shallow things that we're getting into tonight, and you want to get deep and wrestle with these issues, and if you want to get equipped to actually take a stand in your community and in your culture, join us this Wednesday night at 7 p.m. And I'll put the info up, all the whereabouts and everything on the Camp on the Hill Facebook page. But join us this Wednesday night. Guys, I'm not disappointed in the outcome of the 2022 midterm election. In fact, I'm excited. I'm excited because we made big steps forward, and there is more coming. The Democrats are terrified. They're absolutely terrified because they recognize that more and more their corruption is this close to being exposed, and they are this close not only to be taken out of power, but being brought to justice. It's time for you and I not to slow down now. Now is the time to really take it to the system. It is time for you and I to stand, and it is time for you and I to do our part with our newly elected Senator, J.D. Vance, and wherever you're at watching around the country. It's time to do our part, partnering with our representatives to change the culture in our communities. Guys, thank you for watching this video. Please like this video, please share it, and I look forward hopefully to seeing you this Wednesday night at the Engaging the Culture class. See you guys.